Ruby, B.
Yeah.
I was finishing up the reading for this month's episode, and I think I'm starting to see like the bigger picture here.
Mm-hmm.
I think this Seishiro guy and this Dr. Sakurazuka, I think they're the same person.
No.
You're wrong.
Oh,
I don't see it.
I thought I'd seen the full picture. Dang it. Hi, I'm JD.
I'm B.
And I'm Ruby.
And you're reading the wrong way. Welcome to Reading the Wrong Way episode. I believe we're on 8 now. Part
Something
2
like
of our Tokyo Babylon retrospective as a kind of gift for a friend who had her birthday last month, is getting married this month. Congratulations. But I wanted an excuse to read. I just wanted an excuse to do this because I like this series. So yes, we are covering volumes 4 through 7 of Tokyo Babylon. That is essentially the second half of this 7-volume series. If you'd like to see our thoughts on the first half, you can check out our last episode covering volumes 1 through 3. As a brief rundown for those who decided to skip that episode, Tokyo Babylon is a manga by Clamp that was serialized in Wings from 1990 to 1993, starring Subaru Sumeragi, the 13th head of the Sumeragi clan, an exorcist family, the foremost exorcist, or this onmyoji, I'm sorry, of Japan at the time. His twin sister, Hokuto Sumeragi, who has some training but doesn't use as much, is much more of a kind of fashionista of the early 90s. And their friend, Seishiro Sakurazuka, who is definitely not the Sakurazuka Mori, the dark reflection of the Sumeragi clan.
Just a good friend.
Yeah, just a good friend. They're just friends. Roommates, maybe. No.
Oh, no.
They were roommates.
Yes, so
16-year-old.
I forgot about the good friends thing and like queer media, but also people talk a lot about the like, oh, it's such a rare homosexual relationship. No, it's not. It's not even a relationship. They're just pretending that it is. I don't read this like in any way as actually a gay story.
No,
Yeah.
not even close.
yeah, that was the other thing that I think I've mentioned before, how my friend was kind of hesitant to recommend me this one just because she said she talked about that. And it's like, after reading this, like, I didn't see it. It's like, most of this is just Hokuto going, Subaru, you're in love with Seishiro, right? Seishiro going, I'm in love with Subaru. And so Subaru's like, no, not really. It's like, yeah, that was basically it for the most part. But we'll get to how that culminates later.
Yeah.
We're picking up with volume 4, chapter, I have it only listed as part 1 here, Crime, with a chapter called Crime. So on his way to a meeting with Hokuto and Seishiro, Subaru sees a shrine being torn down, not a sign. Probably sees a sign too being torn down, but it's a shrine. The three of them discuss the ever-increasing price of land in Tokyo and how it relates to homes, graves, and shrines. Subaru notes that many shrines serve as part of seals on spirits, so moving the shrine may release them. Also, he has to go to Yasukuni Shrine as part of an art class assignment. So, like, the first part of this, at least, the dealing with the land and, like, the prices of housing and stuff, like, always going up is definitely a thing that's still hitting today in most places in the world, especially the U.S. and probably Japan as well. Like, I talked about how it kind of reflects a lot of things that are still affecting modern society, and, like, the price of land and housing was one of them, at least for me.
Yeah, this was not the one with the landlord in it, right? That was actually a different chapter.
No, I think this is one, the landlord, or at least the
I
guy
have
who runs the
some-
realty company.
Kind of mixed up. Yeah, okay, yeah, that was this one.
Oh, but no, sorry, that's a different one. I'm sorry.
No,
There-
okay,
there-
yeah, that's why
there-
I'm like mixed up because they are talking about that a couple times, but I think the actual real estate guy is a different chapter.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. They do talk about the like rising price of real estate in Tokyo multiple times. So that's where even I got confused. So while he's at the shrine, he finds a woman burying something under a tree. When confronted, she admits that she has killed her dog and buried its head to create under the tree to create her own familiar to kill the man who killed her daughter. We're getting straight into this thing. This chapter kind of moves, or at least in my notes, it does. He had kidnapped and drowned her daughter, but he was let off because his psych evaluation ruled him unable to recognize right and wrong, which is actually grounds for, I guess, being let off in Japan. It's, I think, 1 in 500,000 or something like that cases actually get ruled this way. So it is very much like the off on a technicality thing that you see in fiction. And to get back at him, she plans to curse him to death because apparently that's legal under Japanese law.
Yeah, she goes off on this really long thing about how like it's not technically a crime if it's a curse. I do feel like she talks about that for a little too long. This is very like ho 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 evil villain. Like I'm gonna explain my plan and you can't stop me because it's not illegal.
I assume that it's more material evidence kind of thing, maybe, but who knows? Maybe there is very specific carve out in Myrtle. I was like, yeah, carried out via curse, totally fine.
Yeah, I don't know if you can prove a curse
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah, that is always the thing with supernatural crimes or like that. It's like, how are you actually going to prove that? But not the point of this chapter, though.
It's going into the X-Files.
Yes. Subaru, as he always does, kind of tries to talk her out of it, saying that it's not what her daughter would have wanted. And he even offers to channel her spirit and ask the daughter when the woman doesn't believe him.
Yeah, I was about to pull one of those too. I was like, how would he know? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, the guy who can talk to spirits could probably just call her forth. And he does that. And then when he
This
does
goes in a really interesting direction.
Yeah. When he does actually summon the daughter spirit, he is shocked to see that she is just as angry and wants this man dead. In a panic, Subaru, who has always been like this bastion of moral purity, straight up lies to the woman and just starts angsting about it to Seishiro when he gets back to his apartment.
Yeah, he just kind of decides for her, like, no, I've decided what the right answer actually is, and I'm just gonna lie.
Mhm.
And I just think Hokuto wouldn't have done that.
Hokuto would have been like, hell yeah, let's do this. Who will help you curse this man? Let's do like 6 curses.
Mhm.
Yes. So Subaru, who has always tried to do the right thing, and worked towards, I guess, preserving life in this case, not killing people, and just in general, has now had to do a bad thing to do a good thing, and that's just weighing too much on his conscience.
But maybe he hasn't done a good thing at all.
I guess so. And it also, this episode, or this chapter, ends with Seishiro shattering a mirror and saying it looks like he'll win the bet. That bet that we learned about in the last chapter or 2 chapters ago in our last
We
episode.
didn't learn about, but we kind of got
that's definitely not the bet Subaru made with that mysterious older boy he met under the cherry trees or the cherry blossom trees.
It's not him. This Seishiro wears glasses.
Yeah.
They had a
Totally.
different bet.
Yeah.
It's just his gambling addiction coming back to bite him. It's just one vice.
Yes, they sure kind of like talks him down, like, oh, don't worry about it. You did good. You did good. And at first I was kind of like, this feels like the voice of the author saying, like, don't worry about how this guy got away because at least you didn't hurt someone. And in a kind of like, if you hurt the bad guy, you're just as bad as them kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I was kind of like mad. I was like, Clamp, I don't like this. But then I'm also looking at it now as like, this is Seishiro as a character and the way he is. And I'm like,
Master manipulator.
Mhm.
yeah, it does more just feel manipulative on the part of Seishiro. But I'm not sure if I believe that Clamp meant it that way or not, which is where my problem kind of is.
I think
But I'm
they
trying to...
also just kind of disagree with murdering someone at this point. I understand that he is let off and that's a failing of the justice system, but he's also clearly not mentally well. And he needs that help before he can even fully stand trial and take responsibility for what he did.
Didn't get enough description of that, and that was just like she was saying, like basically third-hand information, and we don't really know anything about the guy, so it's hard to make a judgment in that case.
I want to make like the fun judgment and be like, hell yeah, for the plot. But you know, in real life, I don't. This is a very serious topic.
Yes,
but for the manga, like Hokuto would have done it. But I think, we only get like a few pages of the whole like, Subaru being like, oh, I don't know, because I think this is more for like Seishiro to be shown as like the male manipulator he is.
Yeah, this chapter is more about Seishiro than it is about the rest of the stuff.
Well, I think it's
like,
also
creepy.
I think it's also at least a significant part of Subaru's character development. Like we see him start out as so kind, and this is like the start where he starts being a bit more forceful in things. We see in other cases as he kind of starts using more force just at this start when he understands the situation, where he understands that sometimes he can't solve everything cleanly and completely morally.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't go to the lengths like someone like Seishiro will go, where he'll basically kill anyone who just looks at him funny. He will use force if he thinks he can get the situation done with in a decent enough way without having to fully hurt someone, if that makes sense. Like a display of force rather than an outright use of it to hurt someone.
Yeah, and I think they touch on it in later chapters, so that'll be interesting to come back to. But they are setting it up very like, Subaru's a good boy. Like he hasn't been like jaded or dulled down by life yet.
Yeah, this is maybe the start of him going down that path, but he never quite gets down that path until...
Content warning for the series. This deals with things like child death, bullying, abuse, and suicide. So if that content isn't for you, or you're just not in the mental state for that, we fully understand. Feel free to come back in our next episode when we should hopefully be covering stuff that doesn't go over that fully.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, based on one, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about please feel free to listen to a different episode of our series. We understand that you have to do right by you. All right. Now, and moving on to our next chapter, Save A, which honestly sounds like it's the name of a Gundam series that I haven't watched yet.
Oh, I've seen a little bit of Turn A, and like I feel like that's going to be my favorite one when I actually watch it, but I do have to actually watch it.
So do I. But yes, this child starts with a high school girl in the rain asking for someone to save her. We learn later that her name is Hashimoto. Her last name is Hashimoto. And she's the quiet, friendless girl. She has a talk with her homeroom teacher about how and the teacher tells her, like, she needs to put herself out there and make friends. He says that the girls in class aren't that bad, which is immediately contradicted. But when they start bullying her outside, including wiping their shoes on her back, leading her to screaming, help me mentally. We then see Subaru waking up at 12 p.m. after roughly 2 hours and 20 minutes of sleep, which means he got in at 9:40, immediately went to sleep, and is only waking up after that, or after 2 hours. Hokuto scolds him for pushing himself so hard. This is a thing that's going to keep coming up. Subaru will push himself to the absolute limits of his body just to both keep up with all of his duties and helping people. He's even going to make up lessons for school because he is only 16 and wants to actually graduate from high school.
Yeah, this is kind of like the only time besides that one episode where he goes somewhere for class or whatever that they really touch on the fact hey, don't forget this kid is in high school. He still has homework on top of having some creepy 25-year-olds hang around with him and and being he has a more than full-time job.
We also learned that
I think even by this point we still haven't heard about his live stream that we don't hear about till really the end of the series.
Oh no, we hear about it right now.
Too.
Oh, okay. Does it?
Yeah, this is the chapter where we learned that his dream is to be a zookeeper. Yeah, we learned that he also wanted to be a veterinarian before he met Seishiro, but he learned that as part of the training, they apparently have to dissect animals. And he's like, nope, can't do that. So zookeeper it is.
Seishiro loves to dissect animals.
But his plans to actually, complete high school are dashed when he gets a call for another job. His grandma has once again secretly come to Tokyo to chat with some high-ranking government people and gives him the rundown. There's I think the term they use is new religious movement, but I just prefer to cut to the chase and call it a cult.
Yeah.
Calling themselves the MS Institute that is targeting high school and middle school children. And so they want someone who is of that age group to investigate it. And thank goodness Subaru is 16 at the time, so they've chosen him. Grandma has also warned... Sorry, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm just hey, some children are getting hurt and they're in trouble. We're going to send you a child to save these children.
It's okay, he's a magical child.
Oh, that makes it all right.
I mean, he's a magical child. He knows what he's getting into and will hopefully be reporting back to people who will take action as soon as they have more evidence, but we'll get into that as this plotline goes on. His grandmother also warns him that she has foretold his future. We learned earlier that the Sumeragi really don't like it when they ask or asking other people to define their future just because it's not for someone of their station, I think might be the easiest way to say it. But grandma has done it, and she saw him being swept away by cherry blossoms or sakura and warns him against having his heart stolen by them. I wonder what that could be. But continue on with Hashimoto's plotline, we see her being bullied in PE and the teacher looking the other way because he just wants to save himself the hassle. I think he doesn't need any more reports on his he doesn't need to report any other things because he doesn't want staining like his record as a teacher.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He mentioned something like that. This is the sort of like extreme level of bullying. You see this a lot in Japanese stories.
Mhm.
This reminds me a lot of All About Lily Shushu, which I think came out maybe a lot later than this, maybe early 2000s, 2001 or 3 or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, we
But
see. Sorry, go ahead, B.
yeah, just like this like extreme level of bullying is very common, especially in stories around this time.
Yeah, I say we see a lot of these stock shoujo bullying tactics here, and because of this, she is basically putty in the hands when she meets the cult recruiter, who says that God has given her the power to see into people's hearts and is able to recruit her into the MS Institute with basically no problems. Essentially, their solution to bullying is just praying the bullying away.
Yeah, and if it's still happening, then you're just not praying hard enough.
Yeah, you just need to pray harder. And as it happens, Hashimoto gets bullied again. We finally learned that her first name is Kuniko, which is going to be very confusing because the main lady you'll see in the cult is named Kumiko. So in English, they're one letter off. So I might just keep referring to her as Hashimoto just to make sure I don't confuse them in saying their names. When the bullies basically start treating her as if she's dead, which is, as I said, a stock shoujo bullying tactic. She goes back to the cult, says praying isn't working. Self-sealing as cults are, they just tell her to pray harder. Also, somewhere in this, we get a page of Seishiro standing in front of a Sony ad, menacingly. He's just standing there, menacingly. Kuniko is then introduced to another new member of the MS Institute. You may have heard of him. His name's Subaru Sumeragi.
I don't know him.
Never met this man before in my life. The MS Institute from the inside looks like a normal cram school, which is essentially a secondary school for cramming for entrance exams in Japan. Led by the woman named Kumiko Nagi. But it's dedicated to purifying their members' souls, as, all cults probably are. At Hokuto's place, we see her and Seishiro discuss Subaru's latest work, and the chapter just kind of ends, and we move into Save B. This is mostly just the setup for the Institute as we move on to here. We see one of these meetings, and it is, as I put it, a very general, basic kind of positivity, self-help kind of thing. There's not as much work being put towards actually improving oneself, not like studying, not lessons into how to kind of help deal with the anxiety of being around people or to get yourself out of like a situation where you're being bullied. But it's just praying to kind of improve one station. Nagi-sensei takes Subaru and Kuniko aside and asks about any of their concerns. Kuniko once again reiterates that the bullying hasn't stopped and, as always, gets the pray harder response.
Mm-hmm.
She gets bullied some more, and she meets Subaru in the park. She confides in Subaru about her situation, and he shows her real kindness and sympathy as opposed to what the Institute is giving her. Even if he can't fully understand her situation, in the apartment, Seishiro is talking with Hokuto about his relationship with Subaru. She says she is okay with it, but also threatens him if he ever harms Subaru. Just more of a quick aside, like happening page to page.
I did like this moment for Hokuto.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was weird. I'm like, why? You're the driving force behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you threatening him about it?
I guess I liked it separately from that.
Mm-hmm.
From
Okay.
thinking of it as like how she's been trying to make this happen the whole time.
Mhm.
I liked that it felt like she was finally standing up
Mhm.
for something.
I
But
think
it is weird when you consider that she's also been the one pushing the relationship.
Yeah.
I think she knows that there's the potential for harm there, but she doesn't want it to get that far. I think she sees it more as like the hedgehog's dilemma of trying to get close to someone, but not wanting to get too close that you hurt them. And so she's like trying to hope that they can find a way to work it out where Seishiro is not hurting Subaru. But I understand where you two are coming from. Back at the Institute, Subaru gives Kuniko some cookies that Hokuto made, and she starts to develop romantic feelings for him. In her art class at her regular school, she's making a fine painting when one of her bullies messes it up and stains a handkerchief that Subaru had given her. Angry, Kuniko finally lashes out, and the bully stabs her in the eye with a palette knife. I say, Clamp, if there's one thing other than Tokyo Tower and April 1st birthdays the Clamp really likes, it's trauma to the eyes.
We're gonna get another one.
Yeah. They have multiple characters who have I like have an eye ripped out, have lost an eye, all that kind of stuff. As like I say, it's not really Clamp until someone loses an eye.
Well, when all of their characters kind of look the same, sometimes an eye patch is a good way to differentiate.
Then they all have eye patches. It's like shit.
I couldn't find anything for this online, but my friend who got me into Clamp mentioned that one of them either lost sight partially or fully in one eye, and that's why it shows up a lot. But I've never found anything to like confirm that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Nagi-sensei calls Subaru to her office after class to explain the situation. Subaru finally calls her out on her callousness and says she'll never be able to save anyone. This is the angriest we've seen him up to this point. I'm not entirely sure I agree with how much like this falls into the kind of you'll never understand my pain territory, but I think it works especially for Nagi-sensei. Like, I think we have some ability to empathize with people in most situations to understand even our situations aren't 100% overlapping. There's a lot of talk about unique pain in this, but I think we can at least understand the common pain points of society. So I didn't know if you two wanted to add on or comment on that. Hello?
No, sorry, I'm spacing out. Not spacing out, but I'm like trying to absorb what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like excited because I'm like, hell yeah, Subaru like getting mad about something, calling somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not something he does too often in the manga, so I'm like, I enjoy the slight character development.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do like that he's telling off this cult leader lady. Yeah.
Sadly, before he can do anything, Seishiro once again appears, knocks Subaru out, and confronts Sensei himself. He says that her psychic powers are actually the real deal, and he's going to have to kill her because in 6 years, she'll found a new cult that will reach 3 million Japanese members. The last panel of the murder scene is Seishiro killing her with magic cherry blossoms, and like the positioning and the paneling make it look like she's being like crucified upside down on a cross, which I thought was a very interesting take on this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I just went back to look at it.
Because like the cut in the top just crosses over like the lines and the shadows in her body to make it, and like the way her arms are out too, like invokes like the crucifixion imagery. Seishiro tells the still unconscious Subaru that looks like Seishiro, has won that bet that they clearly made some time ago, and decides to remove one of Subaru's gloves, which, as we pointed out last time, he never takes off. We don't know how he actually lives his life like that. Are his hands just completely like filthy? Are there new microbe like fungi living under there?
Gross.
Takes off those gloves, but some of his grandmother's magic makes him change his mind out of respect. Says, "Okay, I'm not canceling this. I'm just delaying it out of respect." Subaru later visits Kuniko in the hospital, and she vows to return the handkerchief when she feels truly, actively strong and not a passive sufferer like Kumiko kind of wanted her to be. I liked this chapter duology because I think it is an interesting look at how people sometimes, or people in authority, kind of deal with bullying. They would rather you just kind of turn a blind eye and just suffer through it than actually trying to fix the problem.
Don't know if I had too much to add to that. You pretty much got it. Everything I thought about it too. It did I feel like at some point like a kind of an indictment, but like a very basic indictment of like organized religion too, but it's in the form of a cult. But they were kind of talking to, I think the grandma had mentioned at one point that kind of the same thing, a new religion or a cult.
Yeah, Japan has had lots of like new religious movements pop up. I think especially in the 90s, which after this manga had come out, or 2 years after this manga ended, resulted in the 1995 sarin gas bombings, where they put like sarin gas in trash cans, and a big attack, I think, at subway stations or something like that. And it's one of the reasons there aren't as many trash cans around Japan anymore, is because of that attack and just the after effects of that. So I guess while it doesn't get all the way there and like dealing with cult nonsense, it's another one of those things to see like how it might have been commented on something that hadn't even happened yet. Like how I talked about how the party line stuff in volume 3 was kind of prescient for the internet. Ruby, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you guys got it covered. This chapter, I'm a little like, I remember it, but not too well, to be honest. I do remember enjoying it a lot. I think they're like two-parter like stories are a little bit stronger than some of their other ones. I really enjoyed the two-parter one, like with the phone party line story, and then this one was really interesting too with the cult, because I know cults have been kind of like a thing I've seen a lot in like Japanese media being talked about and the problems they cause. So I thought it was really interesting to see it again in this manga that's a little bit older.
Yeah. Okay, and with that, we move on to Volume 5 and Chapter 6, Old. This is the one we were talking about last time when we were talking about how expensive it is to live in Tokyo and how it comments on that a lot.
Yeah.
Is this the one where the grandpa gets in?
Okay,
yes.
I like this. This is a good one. This is another really good, memorable chapter.
Yes. A man and his wife bicker over their finances. The wife even refers to her own father as the burden, quote unquote. Subaru has to exercise the spirit of a family who killed their daughter and then themselves when they couldn't afford their mortgage, which shocks even the real estate company president, who says, yeah, that's just awful.
Which is kind of like essentially a landlord being like, man, the price of real estate, that sucks. And I'm like, you are the price of real estate.
Yeah. Wanting to cheer himself up from having such a grim job, Subaru takes a stroll through a park where he finds the burden, the old man. I'm just going to call him that because we never learned his name. He's, like I said last time, a lot of these times we don't get characters' actual names. We just kind of know them as for their role in the story. He says, yes, the old man is playing with some birds. He says that animals have a way of knowing what's in someone's heart and that it's humans who are weird in this way. Luckily for Subaru, this man was actually a zookeeper for the Ueno Zoo. So he like asks him some stuff about that because his dream, as we learned in the last volume, is to be a zookeeper.
This is him sort of
like expanding on it.
Yeah.
Yes. We get to see him like talking to someone, kind of sharing that love.
I really liked that. It was a cute moment to see him like interact with another character besides like, another main character. And talk about something that's not about ghosts or spirits. I'm like, oh, how cute. Like, he's being a normal person.
Yeah. Was there anything supernatural in this?
We're getting to it. At the very end, we will get to it. Okay. But yes, this is a chapter with very little supernatural stuff. This is just kind of Subaru dealing with family, I guess, the issues of this family that are completely normal and in some ways just as bad as anything else he's had to deal with. The old man returns home where he gets scolded by his daughter, and his grandkids ask him when he's going to die so they can have their own rooms. The youngest of them looks young enough that I'm at least able to buy that maybe they don't grasp the full implications of death at this point. So I'm just going to blame their mom on this one.
Yeah.
While Sachio, his daughter, is bickering with her unnamed husband, she collapses from sickness. I guess the true villain of this chapter, and probably a few others, is just clearly capitalism at this point, because she feels like she has to work even through that sickness. We learned that the old man's dream is to make his daughter happy 100 times. He says he's done it 99 so far, and with the last one, he can die happy and face his late wife on the other side.
Yeah.
To do this, he rushes out to buy his daughter bananas. They were her favorite food as a child, and he was hoping that they might cheer her up and help her get through her sickness. But in his haste, he doesn't see a truck, and he gets run over into the park. Look for him in the newest Isekai series.
He's with Manuel now.
Yes.
Wait, you have to name it, though.
They already used Isekai Oji-san. Old man in another world.
Sentence.
I went out to get bananas, and now I know a Mexican. Like,
now I know a Mexican boomer in another world.
Yes.
Look for coming next spring from Gohan's. I don't know. I'm picking a studio at this point. Yes, Subaru, who had been passing the park, finds the old man in the road, and the old man asks Subaru to deliver the bananas to his daughter. And Subaru does so, still covered in the now dead man's blood. Learning of the situation makes Sachio realize just how terrible she's been to her father.
Good.
Sometime later, Subaru is visiting the park with Hokuto and Seishiro, and they just leave a bouquet of flowers on the bench where they first met and talked. But while doing this, he also sees Sachio and her family going to visit the man's grave. She and her husband have clearly realized how bad they've been and are trying to be, I guess, put more positivity into their relationships now, especially making sure that their children understand like how good a man their grandfather was, even if they had been seeing him as a burden. And Subaru sees the old man's spirit sitting in the tree with the birds. And again, on a not completely depressing note.
Yeah, this one, it was a little sad that the old man had to die. I knew it was going to happen, right?
Mhm.
You can tell when those characters get introduced. I was like, oh, this one's getting introduced to die in a couple of pages. But but it was still good. It was really like refreshing to see Subaru like interact with people like a normal human who isn't constantly working and exercising spirits.
Yeah.
It was, I thought, like super badass that he's like covered in like the guy's blood, and then he just shows up to the apartment of the daughter and being like, your dad just died.
Here are some bananas.
Here are some bananas. Yeah. Bananas covered in blood. You suck.
Yeah, as someone who also lost a family member right around the time I was reading through this, it kind of hit me a lot harder. Just seeing like someone die so randomly. Well, it affects me a lot just because of past events in my life, but having to do that not that long after another seemingly random death in my family kind of just hurt a lot. So yeah, this is another really good chapter that I like, and kind of shows how we sometimes forget what is important to us and what we should be thankful for when other problems kind of have us on edge. We see the problems with the money have clearly made them forget how much she loves her father. She should be happy that he's still there with him, especially when she lost her mother at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just the disconnect between that. I'm like, oh, I could never. But,
Yeah.
It's a manga.
I feel like a lot of people say that, well, I this could never happen to me. And then as we've kind of seen with the manga, they think that until it does happen to them, or they don't even realize it's happened to them. Moving on to chapter 7, Box. I talked about last time how I confused the annex chapter Smile with another chapter. I think it was this one I kind of fused in my brain because they have similar setups.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah. Subaru, Hokuto, and Seishiro are all at a karaoke box, which is essentially just, like a room where you rent out to sing karaoke. If you've been to like a round one, you can see them there. They just call them, I think, party rooms or karaoke rooms. When Hokuto decides to start inputting random codes, and whoever can't sing the song has to do anything the other one tells them to do, the always compassionate Seishiro gives Subaru an out by having him go buy cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
While he's at the vending machine to get the cigarettes, an office lady in a different room drags him into her room as she sings bitter songs of pain and heartbreak. It's like sitting down with her in this room. She just tells him that she was sleeping with her boss. She initially treated it like it was just a fling because he was married with kids and, in her own words, not a 10 in any category. But one day it got serious and she started wishing that he would leave his wife and marry her. And that's when he broke it off. Like she notes in the most cliche way possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she had been coming to that karaoke box basically every day to be comforted in songs of pain and heartache. She talks about how all these songs end in tragedy for the woman, and she's no different in that regard. Like I think this talks about, or it talks to how we deal with kinds of pain, how we find that catharsis in fictional tragedy and sadness. But sadly for her, it's too late. But Subaru does tell her that she is different. She can make her own life. So next time she can lead a life she won't regret. With that, the woman passes on to the next life. She was a ghost the whole time. It's the Sixth Sense all over again.
And just to like undercut all the drama really quick, there is a very brief silhouette of Tokyo Tower in the background.
Yeah. Look, Clamp really likes Tokyo Tower. I can't fault them for that. So yeah, I think this is just another like short chapter. Like, as I said, I confused this with Smile because it is mostly just one of the Sumeragi siblings and a woman talking. Only this time, she's a ghost, not just an immigrant.
Yeah, I really liked this chapter too. I don't really like Seishiro. I don't really like Seishiro as a character. Yeah, even if he wasn't like 25 hanging out with 16-year-olds. he's just not that compelling because like you could tell what's going on with him from like a mile away. But when he was like, "Oh, why don't you go like get me some cigarettes? I forgot mine." I was like, "Damn, that's smooth. Damn, he got me." You know? I'm like, "Oh, like he's actually being considerate."
Yeah, actually, Hokuto even points out that he never really smokes in front of Subaru, so he's clearly just sent him away because he wants to give him this out rather than an actual need to smoke at the moment.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, okay, he actually does kind of care. He actually does have a little bit of a human side then, and hopefully we're gonna see more of this."
Yet
We don't, but yeah, like I did think it was funny too that the 16-year-old 16 is going to go buy cigarettes by himself. Okay, Japan, and then this like office lady, like I don't think they mention her age, but she's clearly like an adult. Like I can't imagine being at karaoke and seeing like a 16-year-old walking by and being like, "Hey, come into my room. I have a terrible life. I'm going to tell you all about it.
Right.
I hope you give me some advice because obviously at 16 you definitely have like, something worthwhile to tell me." But you know what? I didn't see it coming that she was a ghost. I didn't see it.
I think that's part of the reason why she picked him is because he might have been the first person who could see her in a while.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it might have been less, "Oh, I see a random 16-year-old boy. Let's ask him for advice." It's, "Oh, someone actually sees me. Let's like spill my heart out to him and see if that helps me in my situation."
All right, I see it.
Yeah, so like I said, as I remembered Smile, it was this set of conversations on the bench rather than in a karaoke box. And obviously with a different Sumeragi sibling with, say, Subaru instead of Hokuto. Speaking of death, that brings us into Chapter 8, Rebirth.
The opposite of death.
Yes. Subaru is at the hospital with the flu when he meets a little boy who's there every other day. When Seishiro comes to pick him up, Seishiro says the boy must have some kind of kidney problems because the room the boy goes into is the dialysis room. At her apartment, Hokuto and Seishiro discuss Subaru's empathy. He barely seems to care for himself, but he cares for everyone else equally deeply. If he were to ever fall in love with someone and then be betrayed by them, it would probably kill him. Seishiro, I think, mumbles another...
That's not foreshadowing at all.
Yeah. Speaking of not subtle foreshadowing, Seishiro, I think, mumbles another reference to the bet.
Like, it's not me, but if it was...
Unless... At the hospital, the little boy, his name is Yuya. We learn that his condition is getting worse, and he's in desperate need of a kidney transplant. Subaru takes on more work to be around the hospital. Seishiro visits and mumbles something about how Subaru would hate him if he knew the true reason he became a veterinarian. Sorry. Don't want to confuse him with a military veteran. While visiting Yuya, a patient in a nearby room apparently goes brain dead, and Yuya's mother rushes to the room, hoping desperately that they'll let Yuya have one of his kidneys. And once again, of all people, Seishiro is the one who tells her to consider the other woman's suffering, like calming down Yuya's mother. The hospital director probably breaks a few laws and like parts of the ethics code by telling Subaru how Yuya had an older sister named Maya with the same condition. Their mother had to make the tough choice of which one she would give a kidney to and chose Maya. It didn't take, and Maya ended up dying. And the mother clearly deeply regrets that choice.
Like HIPAA violation.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a Japanese equivalent, but I assume there's at least...
I was going to say, do they have Japanese HIPAA?
I assume there's at least some standards or like ethics codes where it's like, don't tell patients about, or don't tell unrelated people about the stuff the patients passed. When
the
Subaru...
act of the protection of personal information.
That too.
Happy.
Yeah.
Happy.
When Subaru returns to the hospital, I point out he basically pulls a loss about 15 years before that webcomic came out, with just like the silence of running through the hospital and like ending up in Yuya's hospital room. Mm-hmm. It turns out Yuya is in critical condition right now, and he's going into surgery. Seishiro and Hokuto are not far behind him, but don't know what's going on. Yuya's mother is even more desperate now. Even as Subaru is telling her that he is willing to donate one of his kidneys to Yuya, she still attempts to stab him with a knife, but Seishiro arrives just in time to block it, taking the knife to the face-eye area. The volume ends as he's whisked off to his own surgery, and Subaru is just banging on like the door to the surgical area in grief. And so Hokuto realizes just how much Seishiro means to Subaru. Like Subaru might not have been aware from it, but he's clearly in much more grief than he would be for any other random person. Obviously,
yeah, I think this is when like they kind of start like having some sort of like connection. I feel like that's a little bit more obvious than like you're just my sister's weird friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're at like the beginning of the end now.
Yes, we are at the end of volume 5 of a 7-volume series. As someone who's once again been in a very similar situation to this, I won't go into it much on podcast.
Whose eye was it?
It wasn't an eye, thankfully.
I was gonna say it was Manuel's eye, wasn't it?
No. I really felt like this, like the desperation and just how she also has kind of lost any sense of what is actually going on, what is wrong, what is right at this point. I mean, as it points out, Subaru was basically already saying, yeah, I'll donate it if it can be donated. There's obviously more than has kidney can donate kind of thing. It has I think their tissue and blood type issues that have to go into checking, but I'm not a doctor, so don't take me on that one. So yeah, and this leads into the next one. This is another like duology, or is this a trilogy? I can't remember.
I think it's a trilogy.
Yeah, I would say the events from it continue, but I think the events with Yuya are coming to an end of the next chapter.
I don't think they're like part 1, part 2, part 3, but I think these ones they all have individual names and their own stories, but it's actually starting to be more of a serialized sort of plot now.
Yeah.
And this was another one without any real or any big connection to the supernatural, so I think that just makes it all the more powerful in a way. It's just dealing with how society has kind of affected these people, or even like a society that's trying to do its best and make sure that anyone who can get a kidney transplant, but that means there's a list. Some people are going to have to be missed by that list kind of thing. I think it just shows the stress that you can go through in life and how having to deal with loss of one child already can make someone super desperate that they will make actions that they will immediately regret. At least we can hope they will immediately regret. But that leads us into volume 6 and chapter 9, news. Not long after the end of the last chapter, Subaru is still sobbing and beating himself up over Seishiro taking the knife for him. Hokuto finds him in his room and tells him that all his crying can't fix what's already happened. Seishiro's right eye will never see again. She asks him to think instead of what he wants to do next, and this is, of course, apologizing to Seishiro. He blames himself for the entirety of the situation because Subaru is just such a nice little boy that he would probably blame himself if you bumped into him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the hospital, and Subaru breaks down again as he tries to apologize to Seishiro. Seishiro assures him that it's not his fault. He chose to get into the way to defend Subaru. Subaru, as much as he's empathetic to everyone, sometimes needs to remember that people do make choices, so it's not his fault for everything around him. He says humans only act in self-interest, and he asks if Subaru will do anything he asks for, and then requests an angel cream donut and an old-fashioned from Mr. Donut.
Yeah, I thought that was like a cute moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, because Seishiro sucks.
Yeah,
but it was
cute.
Subaru being so like distraught about everything, I felt so like, oh, like this poor little boy, he's such a sweetheart, you know, he's thinking about it the wrong way, but like I get it, you know, I would be the same way, and I liked the little bit of wisdom that everyone's kind of dropping to him, saying like, you know, hey, Seishiro can, like, he's a grown man, he made the decision himself, it sucks what happened, but whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, he's finally getting a little bit likable for me, at least as a character. He's doing like, hey, just give me a donut, dude. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Hell yeah, man.
Yes.
Too bad you suck.
As Subaru leaves to get the donuts, Hokuto visits Seishiro, and they have a very tense conversation. She calls him a two-faced man who smiles to your face, but stops the second you turn away. She says I
can smell the blood on you.
Yeah. She says his eyes are the dead giveaway, even obscured by glass. She can tell that they're no normal person's eyes. Mask it all he might, he still smells of blood. When Hokuto leaves true to form, Seishiro praises her intuition and cryptically says, time is almost up. Before his afternoon tests, Seishiro declines pressing charges against Yuya's mother and sends the Sumeragis to visit Yuya instead. Yuya's mother's actions are being concealed from him, and he's just staying at the hospital while she's in police custody. Subaru offers to come visit or talk to Yuya whenever he can. Yuya wonders where his mother is because, as we're told, he's been locked out of the loop on this one. But boy, will he get clued in later. Almost immediately, I guess. Sometime later. Well, we're not really given an exact time frame. It could have just been later that night, but it could have been a couple days. I think it's a couple days. I think they're in different costumes. But given Clamp, maybe they did just perform a costume change when they got home. Yuya calls Subaru to ask him what his mom did. There's a media circus outside the hospital when the Sumeragis finally get back there. Yuya has disappeared, but Subaru finds him in the dialysis room sobbing. He's then moved to a different room under a different name, and we see him watching, like reading the news reports about his mother and blaming himself for her actions, like Subaru did at the start of this chapter. Hokuto once again states that each person's suffering is unique and we shouldn't judge them for that. She's basically commenting on the news, trying to pass judgment on Yuya's mother at this point. And here we get Subaru comforting Yuya and tells her that even if the news reports the facts I have here with a capital F, it doesn't always report the truth, once again with a capital T. They both understand that his mother... Sorry, go ahead.
It's just like we're going back to the theme of empathy again. And
yes.
Like, the way that everybody's going to see the sort of the situation. And he's like, no, we have to like see everybody, see where they're coming from and see like everybody's individual problems.
Mm-hmm. They both understand that Yuya's mother was a good person, pushed to extremes by bad circumstances, and that shouldn't make Yuya love her any less. Hokuto wonders where Seishiro is and how his name managed to stay out of the news, apparently. Subaru says he's also gone missing from his room, and on the roof, Seishiro says it's time to settle the bet.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. So yes, this is, I believe, sadly the last we'll see of Yuya and his family, but hopefully they're, moving along well.
Yeah, I really liked him as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like cute and refreshing to see the cast interact with like a child for more than like a couple of pages in a one-off kind of episodic chapter. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really cute, and I really liked him as a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so did I. I really feel for this situation. And sick kids are obviously a good way of just quick sympathy, but I think it works for this. This is talking about the medical world and how that can put us in dire straits and push us to things we would never think of doing.
Yeah, they didn't make it too like cliche on the whole like sick kid thing either. And I think that's what made it so enjoyable, because the kid was like super energetic and happy and go lucky.
And that leads us into our final chapter of this volume, chapter 10, Pair. Subaru once again dreams of meeting that man beneath the cherry blossoms all those years ago, until he hears the same voice saying it's time to settle the bet. He startles awake, screaming Seishiro's name. I wonder why that could be. He chose that name to scream. Hokuto pops in to check on him. He's going to visit Seishiro. Hokuto wishes she could come along, but she apparently has a date with the hostess from the Annex chapter Smile. She also asks Subaru what exactly he thinks of Seishiro. She reiterates that in her own opinion, Subaru is dull to his own desires, but she can see his heart. He's the one who's changed the most from this incident, and he needs to think about what he wants and how he feels. Actually, this is kind of like their running point about Subaru, that he is too selfless for his own good. He needs to be selfish on some level, caring about his own desires, even though sometimes that means shutting off the greater good in terms of his own, getting what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
While pondering his feelings for Seishiro, Subaru helps a blind man who's being harassed by some teenagers. I mentioned before that we see Subaru using more force up front, and this is it. He is more forceful in this encounter and nearly gets into a physical altercation with one of the boys over trying to take the man's guide dog. Because Seishiro may one day lose all his vision, Subaru talks to the blind man about guide dogs, and in the process learns a few ways the disabled are treated poorly by Japanese society.
Yeah, this chapter becomes like a PSA for guide dogs.
Mm-hmm. Or there at least were, I don't know the situation now, so few trainers at the time, and it takes so much money and time to train a guide dog that getting one is just a giant list, and you can maybe get through it if you're lucky. I also call this guy not Daredevil I don't know if he looks that much like Matt Murdock, but I think every blind man just now makes me think Daredevil. Yeah, he mentions how hard it is to get a guide dog, but gives Subaru some info in hopes that it could help Seishiro.
Yeah.
He also tells Subaru that he can help Seishiro himself by being his eyes until he gets a guide dog. He also mentions that the trainer said he and his guide dog were, in a way, made for each other, and it took all their hardship just for the two of them to meet. He thinks Seishiro and Subaru might be the same. He can feel Subaru's love for Seishiro in his voice. Because, when you're blind, you just get the ability to sense love in a voice immediately.
I've heard that happens.
Mm-hmm. It must have been the waste that hit him when he lost his sight. Oh, no, he's not Murdoch. Never mind. All this helps Subaru as he's kind of sorting out his feelings for Seishiro, and just in time to find Seishiro standing there, once again, menacingly saying it's time to settle our bet. But before that, any other thoughts on this chapter?
No, I think it was interesting to see Subaru starting to get, like earlier I said he's not jaded yet, and this is kind of where it's starting. He's seen some stuff where he hasn't processed it yet. It is kind of messing with him. He's getting a little bit more aggressive, talking to the blind guy. He gets, a little pick-me-up, right? He's becoming a little bit more, he gets a little bit more like, okay, maybe I can start thinking for myself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
As we continue, I think we'll see more of how like this all kind of affects him in the end.
Be anything, or can I use that as a segue?
No, segue.
Speaking of the end, that brings us to Volume 7 and Chapter 11, Bankruptcy. The end. Sorry, I just wanted to fit in that bankruptcy joke while I had the chance. I told you the real villain was capitalism.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, picking up. Sorry, do you have something you want to say before we start going over what happened?
Just like about this chapter.
Yeah.
Huge tonal shift.
Yes. Believe me, Clamp loves the tonal shift where you can see the panels where the tone completely changes. Read Tsubasa and my friend will vow that she can tell you the exact panel where the tone just completely changes for the rest of the manga. Picking up immediately after the end of the last chapter, Seishiro tells Subaru it has been a year to the day since they met again, and that makes it the promised day. As he reaches out towards Subaru, his hand goes beyond like the edge of the panel, breaking through it for a nice like pseudo 3D effect. Quick aside that I thought was cool. Subaru is confused about all this, but starts to piece together pretty quickly. We once again see the scene under the cherry blossoms play, but this time Seishiro is there to fill in the gaps for us. He explains that those gaps are actually because he erased those memories. With them restored, Subaru remembers the corpse lying at Seishiro's feet from that day. The entire reason he was even at that specific tree where they met was because he could sense the grudges and hatred that had seeped into it. You remember Seishiro's story about how sakura trees get their color from the dead bodies. Yeah, he wasn't lying in some ways. There are a bunch of dead bodies under that tree. Seishiro finally admits that he is a Sakurazu Kamori. Insert surprise Pikachu here.
Really?
Yeah. Subaru, realizes he saw Seishiro killing someone that day, but according to his grandma, anyone who catches the Sakurazu Kamori in the act of killing would be killed as well. But there's a reason he's still alive. It seems to be connected to their bet. And the reason Subaru is always wearing gloves. On that day, Seishiro marked Subaru's hands with the symbol of the Sakurazu Kamori, and he's been wearing gloves to hide that ever since. The gloves themselves were enchanted, but even through that, Seishiro could still recognize the mark he left all those years later. And we finally get the full details of their bet. I'll just read it as I have it here. I think it's directly from my version of the manga. If you and I should ever meet again, let us live together for 1 year. I will try my hardest to learn to love you just for 1 year. And after that, if I can consider you special, you will have won and I will not kill you, but otherwise I will kill you. And this really paints the stark contrast between the two of them. Subaru cares so deeply for everyone he meets that he can barely care for himself. And it took forever for him to realize the Seishiro he thought he knew was someone special to him. Seishiro, on the other hand, is completely empty and cares for no one while putting up a mask of being a kind man. He also explains how the Sakurazu Kamori can be a clan of assassins when there's only one true Sakurazu Kamori. They essentially follow the rule of two of the Sith a couple of years before it's first mentioned in a Star Wars film. One is trained, and to take on the title of Sakurazu Kamori, they must kill their predecessor. In Seishiro's case, it was his mother. He describes how he felt nothing killing her and has not felt anything for any of his kills since. He proceeds to beat up Subaru, even further, saying that to him, it's the same as kicking a pebble across the street or breaking a glass. Subaru puts up no resistance. Seishiro even tells Subaru that he would likely be able to break free from his spell if he resisted, is confused by how hurt Subaru is at this betrayal. From his point of view, this is something that just happens every day all over the city of Tokyo. Subaru is saved at the last minute by the appearance of his grandmother's Shikigami, and she uses her magic to break the spell. Seishiro believes that she must have paid dearly to do something like that over such a grand distance. And with the spell broken, Subaru suddenly appears on the hospital floor, causing a panic. After that, Subaru is catatonic for some time. Hokuto is helping to take care of him, but she's also blaming herself for letting Seishiro get too close to him. Subaru has always been so selfless, and she wanted him to have one thing that he could be selfish about. We see her taking Subaru's onmyoji robes out of his closet as she plans to do something. She says goodbye to Subaru, tells him that this is all her fault, and as she leaves, wishes for him to come back with tears streaming down her face. She disappears, and 1 month later, Subaru is still comatose, being cared for by his wheelchair-bound grandmother. In his state, Subaru sees a vision of Hokuto being killed by Seishiro and disappearing. He wakes up yelling her name, much to his grandmother's surprise. Immediately afterwards, they receive a call that Hokuto was in fact killed by Seishiro. Subaru firmly declares his plan to quit school and to pursue Seishiro, declaring himself, or that he will kill him for what he's done. And thus ends the main story of Tokyo Babylon. There's another chapter, but I'd want to get your thoughts on all this coming out in one chapter at the very end.
Yeah, what a whirlwind. Just one chapter and all this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of Seishiro talks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of all he does.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks and he beats people up, or I guess kills people most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's two things he's good at.
Yeah, so I mean, I saw it coming because I knew ahead of time that this was seen as having like a really dark ending.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I have just so many questions. Why? Why make the bet? Was there?
Well, I think the reason he made the bet was because he felt so much compassion in Subaru that he was like, I wonder if this kid could change me. If nobody else could ever change me, maybe he can.
Mm-hmm.
And then his final decision is nope.
No.
Nope, you could. I think it's also something about how we have this kind of idealized version of things, and then we get that version shattered when we see the truth, the evil kind of behind it. And I think that's what kind of how Subaru had this image of Seishiro in his mind, who was just a kindly veterinarian. But then you realize just how cruel he can be as basically an assassin for hire on Miyaji. And in the same way that Tokyo to some people is this shining bastion of possibilities where they can go and live their dreams, only to be met with the cruel reality that they're maybe going to be scraping by and that most of them will not make it.
Yeah.
And in that sense, Tokyo, to clamp at least as a modern Babylon, it's a place where of high highs, but you'll be kind of cast aside as soon as you're an inconvenience to some people.
Yeah, and I see how they were because it's not super the tone shift is so stark and so sudden, but I can see how they were going for that kind of on purpose to be this is just how it is.
Yeah. I think that the kind of stuff I was describing is exactly how Subaru's kind of journey is, that he is a kind of wide-eyed idealist who is just too pure for this earth at the start. And he's just become slowly disillusioned until everything breaks. And that kind of informs him going forward in the extra chapter and into X, which I'll discuss after that. But yeah, even knowing what happens in X when I first read this, because I read this after, this still hit hard, just how much he is broken by this one chapter.
Yeah, because the whole time he's very anytime they're oh, you're his boyfriend, oh, you love him, he's no. And the last thing he does before this chapter is say I love Seishiro.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is kind of sorted through his feelings, and he loves Seishiro, or at least what he thought was Seishiro. I think it's also that of being disappointed by love and seeing that there's more to them than the idealized version you have. I think that's kind of the running thing that I keep mentioning.
Yeah.
Ruby, anything else you'd like to add before we move on to the annex chapters?
Yes, I just like continuing on how earlier I was like, well, he's not jaded yet. I'm like, now he is.
Yes.
Now he is after this horrible thing happened to him. Yeah, now he's jaded, and like this is where I know there's like extra chapters at the end, but this is where I'm like, oh, so it just ends? What do you mean it just I have to read X now? Like I want to see evil Subaru, jaded, angry cuz he's like I'll kill him. And I'm like, okay, finally the plot. To me, in my mind, I'm like the plot. All right, we got plot now. It's not just going to be episodic. I'm excited. And then it just ended. And I'm like, what do you mean it just ended? Like the most interesting thing just happened.
uh,
The thing that I knew from like the first chapter that or like whenever they mentioned like, oh, he might be an evil guy, it's like, well, yeah, obviously it's him. Finally finally they revealed, hey, it's me the whole time. Like, yeah, no shit. What happens next? Oh, it's over.
I wonder how this would have been if it didn't end with him saying like I'm gonna get him, and if it just ended it with him depressed in the hotel hospital bed,
mhm.
and then maybe like they do still continue with the story in X, but leave it less open ended as the end of this series.
Sorry, speaking of your like it ends just as you're getting into it. I mentioned like around the time wait, was it last chapter or last episode of this one, but where I was talking about how the story of the sakura trees getting their color from the corpses remind me of only yesterday, which I saw after reading this. And like your description of that reminds me of my thoughts on Miss Hokusai, the film that I saw also around the same time that I was reading this. It's like, oh yeah, this is just getting good. And it's like, oh, and the movie's over. Never mind. That's all I really have to say about that.
I haven't seen it.
It's an interesting film. I think, is it back in theaters soon? I think that's the only reason it's on my mind again. But yes, moving on to our first of two like postscript chapters, Annex Secret. Funny little thing I noticed, at least in my version, I believe. I think all the previous chapters listed Subaru, Hokuto, and Seishiro as the stars of the manga, and this is the first to leave Hokuto's name out. I wonder why. I mean, chronologically, she is still alive in this chapter.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
Yes.
All right.
This seems to take place towards the end of Save B from Volume 4. After killing Kumiko Sensei, Seishiro carries Subaru back to his veterinary clinic, where he sees one of the animals has died and reveals his true reason for becoming a vet, which he mentioned chronologically after this chapter in Chapter 8, Rebirth. He has been using animals in the hospital as sacrifices to keep himself from being damaged. He makes a mention about the bet. He looks back at the love fortune they got in Call A and notes that it's in no way reliable. His birthday isn't April 1st. April Fool's, I guess? I believe his birthday is either in September or November, Fool. According to, I think, information Clamp has put out.
We are the April Fool.
Yes. And also, Subaru wasn't born in Tokyo. I believe that bit had already been mentioned in the manga, but it was chronologically after this, at least. He keeps monologuing, or I guess technically soliloquying. I don't know the proper term for delivering a soliloquy, if there's just one singular verb for that, about how onmyoji are known to never give out personal.
Experts running it right now.
Yeah.
Soliloquy?
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
I'm not a drama person.
Yeah. He continues his soliloquy about how onmyoji know to never give out personal information because it would make them themselves vulnerable. Just like how our sponsor for this month. No, I'm kidding. We're not actually sponsored. Sorry, really I set that up just for a joke about not being sponsored. With that out of the way, like, he takes Subaru home, as we see in the original chapter. And that's it. It's just kind of a little addition to Save B from Volume 4. But at least explains some of the things that were mentioned in the background of other chapters. And then move on to like our full big annex chapter, Start. Which is weird because I guess because it came after End, it has to be Start. But it's also the final chapter of this one. We get a clear vision of events leading up to Hokuto's death at the hands of Seishiro. We see her approaching him in the same cherry blossom demi-plane, for lack of a better term. She says she can't let him kill Subaru, even if they both know she can't kill him. She says there are certain spells that only she has the power to cast. She offers herself in Subaru's place, and as we see, Seishiro obliged her that. Subaru awakens from a painful nightmare. In this chapter, we see he is visibly much older, like he appears in X, which takes place in 1999, as its original Western title, X 1999, would let you know. He looks at himself in the mirror and sees Hokuto's image in the reflection as well. He begins to remember their time together, where she asked him to always say good morning to her. He says that to the reflection in the mirror and shatters it, like Seishiro did at the end of Crime in Volume 4. He has a new job investigating paranormal activity in an apartment complex. While looking around at night, he spies a mysterious woman who looks at her child in a strange manner. We also see that he has taken up smoking, just like Seishiro did. He suddenly feels or senses a strange energy, but notes that it's not paranormal, but more just direct force of will. While approaching the energy, some big piece of debris, I think it might be a chunk of the apartment building, but I thought it was a tree at first. While standing in a crowd with everyone, Subaru is pulled aside by a little girl who asked him to play with her. She says she thought he could hear, in quotation marks, it, that he might be able to help. She tells him to look again at the apartments, and we see an explosion on one of the upper levels. The girl tells him to listen out for it once again, before mysteriously disappearing. Subaru decides to listen, and hears a small voice calling out from the apartment of the strange lady from earlier. We learn that her name is Tona. He learns that she's a 28-year-old housewife of a 30-year-old trading company employee. They haven't had any paranormal problems, but the wife has stopped coming to the Women's Association meetings, as rarely seen outside the apartment. Subaru sees the mysterious girl again, and she asks him to help the child that keeps crying out. He rushes back to the apartment and finds the woman abusing her infant child. She claims he's just a part of her, so she's only hitting herself, punishing herself. Part of his memory with Hokuto from the beginning of this chapter was her talking about how, even though they're twins, the two are still two independent people, and they should both view each other as that. And that is kind of playing here, as the child is not just a part of the mother. They are this, or thinks the son is his own independent person, even as a child. After Subaru takes the baby away from her, we learn that her husband left her for another woman. The baby seems to be lashing out psychically, causing all the commotions at the apartment. The girl could feel it, but because she died in a very similar manner, she was killed by her mother after her father died and left behind a lot of debts in a similar situation to the one mentioned in Volume 5. Before the girl's spirit departs, he asks her if Hokuto is also in the place she lives. She asks him what Hokuto looks like, and he tells him she must not be there because there's no one with such lovely eyes as his. He mentions that they basically look exactly the same. This is a point that is brought up multiple times across the manga. As he walks away, he ponders one of the last things that girl told him. Maybe all the people who do bad things are really just lonely. This conjures up images of Seishiro, and falling leaves take the place of cherry blossoms as the manga draws to a close, with Subaru walking down along an empty road, casting a long shadow behind him. And thus ends Tokyo Babylon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this last one especially was just kind of a look at how this situation has changed Subaru. He's clearly jaded. He is still on the hunt for Seishiro, apparently. He's taken up some of his habits, either just as a sign of his maturation or his obsession with Seishiro trying to become him in some way to catch him.
He's bad now. He
Yeah.
smokes. He looks angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works good as an epilogue. It's still weird to me that they end a series with like stuff that's like, oh, you gotta read another series. That I do think it probably would have been stronger without that stuff, but I understand why they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just continues how he has grown from the disillusionment at the end of End and is trying to still do good in his condition, and how he can still has the capability for that, showing that even someone in his condition is still capable of doing good. So maybe there's something in Seishiro that could do good.
Yeah. It like leaves you wanting more. But I'm not gonna read the sequel.
Yeah, I'm not sure I plan to read X, but we'll see.
Like I said, X is my favorite clamp work. I would recommend it, but I will kind of get into that if you don't have anything else before I just explain like the aftermath of this series.
No, I had a little bit else to say.
Okay.
I didn't realize that there was such a big like time skip, I guess,
Mhm.
between this epilogue and the rest of the manga.
Mhm.
Because I knew there was a time skip, obviously, because I was like, he looks different.
Mhm.
Why does he look so different? It's only been like a couple of months, or like, you know, I didn't realize. I was like, oh, 1999, and then when this came out, oh, okay, that's the time gap.
Yeah, it's
So
a couple of years at least. I don't know if this explicitly takes place in 1999. I don't remember that from reading it, but X takes place in 1999. It definitely.
okay, yeah. So I didn't understand that. I was like, why does he look so different?
Mhm.
But
And go ahead.
I wanted to switch over to Hokuto a little bit
Hmm.
because she says like there's something that only I can do,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
And I got really excited. I was like, "Oh hell yeah! Finally, after waiting the entire manga, we're finally gonna see her in action." and then and then you don't get to see what she does. She just dies. And I'm like, "No!"
I think it kind of ties in to the things they were talking about in, was it volume 6? Yes, volume 6, where she's taking her own course of action. She knows Subaru will blame himself, but she has taken her own course of action. She has made this choice that she will die because she feels it's her responsibility for all these things that have happened. And we do learn more of what actually happened in X. I won't get into it as much as that when I'm talking about it, but if you read it, you'll at least get a better understanding of that final confrontation between those two.
It's just so frustrating. I just want to know about that. I don't.
Okay, I will tell you after so I don't spoil it for the audience.
All right, great. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so before we kind of wrap up on this series, I just wanted to discuss the aftermath and kind of parts of X that are influenced by this. While X isn't a direct sequel to Tokyo Babylon, Subaru and Seishiro both do appear in the series as major characters fighting for different sides of the conflict. The relationship is mostly used as a foil for the relationship of the main characters there, Kamui and Fuma, who also have this kind of like friends turned into enemies because of the betrayal of one of them. And we learn more about what happened between Subaru, Hokuto, and Seishiro. There are also scenes in X that are clear parallels to ones in Tokyo Babylon, mostly scenes set in the hospital after, I think, Subaru himself is injured, and it plays out it's essentially with him in Seishiro's role in that, and with Kamui and Subaru's role. So we see like another person going through this and having to overcome that and how they react differently. So that was that. And I think reading this and then going into that is very fulfilling. I love both of these manga. That's why I picked it for this one as part of a tribute to a friend of mine who's going through a big change in her life, getting married, like I said. So I'm very glad I picked this and got to read it again. Any final thoughts for you before I go any more in depth?
Not much. I did come away ultimately pretty positive. I'm usually the hater of the show.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, I definitely had a lot of issues. It was sometimes a struggle to read it because there were parts I just thought weren't that strong.
Mhm.
But I am kind of like, I do think it's worth reading. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to dislike, but enough that I would still say like, yeah, read it.
Mhm.
I think it is stronger than Ray for sure, which is funny because of how much earlier it came out.
Mhm.
I guess not that much earlier, but they had a lot in between just because of how many series Clamp had running at the same time.
Yeah, and they were also writing in I think a different magazine for a different audience, so they kind of got to take a bit of darker turn. The other one they were very specifically writing for like a younger audience. This one is much more of a, I'd say later teen, probably. Ruby.
Yeah, I think on my initial like read through, I was pretty critical of it. I didn't like it. It wasn't enjoyable for me. But now going back through and kind of like taking the time to sit with it and be like, oh, actually, there were a lot of parts I liked about it. It's just like thinking about it differently instead of being like plot. Where's the plot? Oh, Seishiro sucks. You know, the main characters are a little bit uninteresting at times, but there are things to enjoy about it. I do enjoy it. I would recommend it. I would say, yeah, it definitely is worth reading. I thought at one point that maybe I just wasn't a fan of Clamp because I had read was it Magical Rares?
Magic Knight Rares.
Magic Knight Rares again, like over a decade ago, and I remember not enjoying it as well and having like some similar problems with it, thinking like I didn't like the main cast. And I was kind of just waiting for the plot to happen and things like that. But I think Tokyo Babylon's better, and I enjoyed going back over it with you two and realizing it does have its strong points. I was just maybe being a little bit impatient while reading it. And man, like X sounds a little bit more interesting, but
yeah,
I don't know if I want to do that.
Like I said, I can give you my like full spiel for X after this. I'm just not going to do it on podcast. So yes, like my feelings, I've kind of made it clear. I really like this series ever since I was first introduced to it more than a decade ago. I like the characters. I think it's a very interesting commentary on Tokyo at the time, with a lot of parts that still resonate today that I pointed out across these 2 episodes. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to talk about it again with one person who hadn't read it before and one person who was kind of rediscovering it and finding like the good in that. So I'm really happy for all this. And if you'd like to read it, it is being re-released right now by, I believe, Yen Press in the Clamp Premium Collection. By the time this episode comes out, at least the first 6 volumes will be out, and the 7th one will be on the way, if not already released. It's going to depend on when this episode actually goes out. But yes, that was how I was reading most of them. But there are previous translations from Tokyo Pop, and I believe Dark Horse was the one that did the 2010s re-release.
Yeah, it can be, if you're looking at scanlations, it can be kind of rough.
It's rough.
There's definitely some that are just full pages with very poor image quality and pretty bad translations too in some parts.
I do enjoy the little translator notes on the sides. One was just like cute in all like
a lot
of
points you find the kind of people who are translating this are the kind of people who are less critical of Seishiro and more love to ship this adult with this child.
Yeah.
There's also, I found a fan dub of it, which is about the closest you're gonna get to an anime.
Oh, it has 2 OVAs.
Adaptation of this. Well, I mean like a full anime.
Yeah, full anime.
The OVA doesn't adapt the whole thing, right?
I don't think it actually adapts chapters. It's just like 2 other stories, and in it, Subaru is not nearly as strong as Onmyochi as he is in these chapters.
And I know they had planned to do a full animation, a full adaptation, but it fell through, I believe.
Yes, so it was supposed to be Tokyo Babylon 2021 for the 30th anniversary. It was supposed to be animated by Go Hands, but even like the promotional images drew criticism because they were like plagiarizing some, I think, K-pop stars' fashion styles, and that just got them in enough hot water that they just bailed on it.
Yeah, I think they like fired the entire team or something.
There is also a live action movie that I haven't seen of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a fan dub, just not even as much like a I know people like to do motion comics or motion manga. It's not even so much that, it's just stills of the manga with voice acting. Pretty like amateur fan project, but it is really fun. They put a lot of love into it, and it's a pretty fun way to experience the manga too. They have little like theme songs in there and everything.
Sorry, I had never heard of this before, but I just like the idea of it also having its own theme song. That's fun.
It's not like an original song. They borrowed a song from some band, I think, or something. But yeah, it's pretty cute. If you're struggling with the scanlations,
check your local library and find official releases, or buy it online. Sorry, I'm just trying to promote the legal stuff here.
Yeah.
So yes, I think. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this up and start talking about our next episode?
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right, so that's gonna wrap up Tokyo Babylon for us. Our first 2-parter. Congratulations, Ruby B. We finally did it.
Yippee!
Manuel didn't make it.
Yeah.
He died before we could get this far.
Yep. R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
Oh wait, no.
He's working on a ton of stuff for Fanime. If you go to Fanime, you're gonna see Manuel probably there the whole weekend. I won't be, but I know he's working on so many panels. That's why he couldn't like make the time to be here.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going to Anime Boston, I will be there both as press for A to J Connections, and I'm running my panel Anime Connect. I don't know when it is at this point, but if you see it on the schedule, please come visit. Say you watch this episode. I'll be impressed. I don't know how many people are watching or going to Anime Boston. So what's up next for us in June?
We're doing something a little different next month.
Mm-hmm.
Because our schedule got kind of thrown off a little bit. We wanted to like do a little weird episode before we get back into our usual rotation. So we're gonna do a seasonal sampler.
Yes,
is what we're calling it.
Yes, each of us is going to pick one volume of a manga that is getting adapted in the summer 2025 season. We're going to read that and kind of talk about those and see if we're going to be interested in actually seeing what the anime has to offer.
Yeah, so one volume each of what's yours?
I am picking Gachi Akuta. I first learned about it from our interview at Anime Week in Atlanta with Demon Dice when she mentioned liking it and hoping it got an anime adaptation. So I'm going to look into it now.
Mm-hmm. I saw that one. It does look a lot like the sort of typical, like, what do you call it? The ensemble cast battle shonen.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like a fun version of that. And as much as I am, like, always a hater of the season's new battle shonen,
Mm-hmm.
I do think they're pretty fun. And it's always nice when one's enjoyable. So I hope this one is.
All right.
My choice is The Summer Hikaru Died, which I believe is also on hiatus. But this is one I've been. Is it not?
I don't think it's on hiatus.
Is it just? Oh, is it one of those ones that doesn't have a set release schedule?
Something like that. I had been following this one. I think if you want to read the new chapters that come out, you have to like buy them individually or something on Yen Press it's a little hard to follow.
Okay, so that's all. I didn't really know anything about it except that I think it sounds interesting and that it wasn't as easy to follow right now, or that it was slow or something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been wanting to read this one for a while, and I figured now they're having the adaptation, this might be a good time to check out the first volume of it. This one's more of a sort of horror drama. Ruby, you've actually read it. I haven't.
Yeah, I was following it, but yeah, but it is really good. I really like it so far, so looking forward to that.
And
then Manuel,
quick, let me break out the Ouija board to figure out what Manuel wants us to read.
Okay.
Insert sound effects here of me moving a plank around a board. I'm not actually going to do that. I'm just saying to insert the sound effects here for the audience to know that that's what I'm doing. So yes, according to this, Manuel wants us to read for him Kizetsu Yusha, the Ansatsu Hime, or The Fainting Hero and the Assassin Princess. I have never even heard of this one.
I also see it as the Stunned Hero.
Mm-hmm.
This feels very like the flavor of the last few years, the kind of I don't think it's an isekai, but it is one of those ones where they describe the cast as a party.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, it looks like a very lighthearted sort of fantasy, maybe comedy adventure sort of thing.
Yeah, we'll figure it out next month in June.
Yeah, and then I would also say we should not as like officially, but maybe just try to read as many whatever's coming out in the summer, see what looks interesting. Maybe we can talk about what else there is going on.
All right.
But those are like the three for sure that we'll talk about.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Those are the manga for next time. If you like what you've seen, please consider supporting us. We are ATOJ Connections on patreon.com. You can visit our website at a-to-j-connections.com. Thank you, Manuel, for that one. Follow us on our socials that will be linked in probably whatever description you're looking at as you're listening to this.
Yeah, we're on Blue Sky, Instagram, maybe still Twitter. I don't know.
I think
Facebook.
I think we're just posting like when stuff goes up on there. But yeah, we're on most major social media channels. You will see the links below. Shout out to our patron Ed for helping us bring you content like this and keeping our website ad free. Like I said, if you want to support us, we're at patreon.com/AJ Connections. That will definitely be linked down below. Until then, I'm JD.
V.
And I was Ruby.
And we'll see you next chapter.